everybody, Derek Gould here, and I hope you're all having a happy Halloween. It's that time of year again where we have scary movies, thrills, haunted hayrides, haunted houses, haunted rides, haunted graveyards, costumes, scary men, boogeymen, evil men, killers, psychopaths, candy, cotton candy, freaking candy corn. All the stuff that comes with Halloween. Pumpkins. And yes, I know I don't have this room decorated, but this is the room that kind of takes a backseat in terms of decoration, because it's the room no one's ever going to see. Unless you come into the house, of course. But it's been a while since I've done anything holiday related. I can't exactly remember if I did anything in terms of Halloween last year. I might have done just a quick video of me in my costume. But I know the year before that, in 2011, on my old account, we did an entire month-long videos of me reviewing movies, and boy, did that make me want to kill myself. Yeah, no kidding. It was terrible. So today, I figured for this Halloween, we're going to do something simple. I'm going to talk about my top 10 favorite horror movies, and why I love them, whether they be scary, thrilling, interesting stories, or I just plain out like them. And then, to end this video, I want to talk about my least favorite horror movies and why I think they're terrible. And there are going to be some movies on this list that you don't like, or that you're going to say, wait a minute, why isn't that movie there? Why is that movie ahead of that one? Remember, this is just my opinion. And if I don't like a movie, or I don't have a movie that you happen to like, that is your opinion. You're entitled to it. And this is my opinion. So, with that said, let's talk about my top 10 favorite horror movies first. Okay, number 10, Misery. And yes, this has Silence of the Lambs. But let me point something out first. This was such a hard list to do because there's so many horror movies I love that if I did every single one, it'd be like a top 25 video, and no one wants to hear me talk for that long. But enough further ado. Just Misery. I love Silence of the Lambs, but it's not really a horror movie. I don't consider it a horror movie. I consider it a thriller. Which is kind of different. It's kind of a drama, really. I just don't consider it a horror movie. But it is a great film nonetheless. That does not take away from it. But we're talking about Misery, which I do consider a horror movie. Because that concept is scary as hell. Being isolated in a house, held against your will, by a crazy lady who's got a sledgehammer, who's going to whack your ankles if you get out of your bed. Yeah, tell me you didn't... Ugh. Or when she did that. I mean, come on. Hobbling is scary as hell. And Kathy Bates totally deserved that Oscar she won for that movie. And it's a Stephen King movie. I don't know how... We got a few of those in here. Good movie, though. Terrific performances by James Caan and Kathy Bates. Really love the movie. One of my favorites. And that's caps off our list. Now, number 9, we have the classic, and unfortunately very dated nowadays, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Steelbook Edition. This is a terrific film back when it came out. I love the movie nowadays for what it is, but it is terribly dated, unfortunately. But I can imagine, though, when this movie came out, this was something people had never seen before. This kind of twisted and macabre, just sick shit. Like the house of dead chickens and stuff, and freaking just cannibals, and people had not seen this kind of stuff in movies before. So when it came out, I can imagine people were really like up in arms about it. And let me just read you this back right here. It's been called grisly, sick, perverse, and as well as raw, unshakable, and the movie that redefined horror. It was attacked by churches, banned by governments, and acclaimed only by the bravest critics. It stunned audiences worldwide and set a new standard in movie terror forever. And quite frankly, that's true. Like I said, just unfortunately because of what horror movies are nowadays, this movie is nothing. This is nothing that I've seen movies just recently that aren't even horror movies that are worse than this. I mean, just, you can tell how much the times have changed. But for the time in 1974, I can imagine people were pretty shocked by this movie. And that's why it's on this list, because I recognize how iconic it is. Okay, number 8. Children of the Corn. were not exactly a great movie. It really isn't a great movie by any means, but I think why this movie is on my top 10 list is really the concept of it. And yes, it is a Stephen King movie, but I think the thing that really scares me with this movie is the concept of children killing adults. That scares the shit out of me. Just, it's eerie too, like, the first act of the movie is kind of, the first like few minutes are really creepy, and just the movie has a good setup. The ending, though, unfortunately, due to the film's budget, is kind of lame to say the least, because it's like you see the main guy Bert and the kid like trying to burn the cornfield, and you just see like the he who walks behind the road is like a gopher thing moving throughout the field. Like I said, unfortunately, because the film was made for little to nothing, they couldn't do like the big dragon, whatever the he who walks behind the road is really supposed to be. So they really just couldn't do it. But for what they were trying to do, in the concept alone is what carries the movie. And kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the movie is a little bit dated, but it has a very isolationist feel, especially like as they're getting towards the town of Gatlin. And it has a really creepy and eerie setup. Like I said, kids killing adults is terrifying. Like, adults killing adults, it's scary, but it happens every day. But just like the innocence of children, just something about that just scares the shit out of me. And that's why it's in my top 10. Okay, number 7. John Carpenter's The Motherfucking Thing. I'm going to try not to swear that much, but seriously, The Thing, okay? Yes, this is a remake. This was back when remakes were actually good because the people making them respected the original and they wanted to make a much better version of the original. They wanted to make it a much better. They wanted to... Something about remakes in the 80s, they were just better. Like The Blob, The Thing, The Fly. They were all great. But The Thing nails it. Kurt Russell gives a great performance in this movie. And John Carpenter has, like, you watch the interviews in this movie, John Carpenter has so much passion and love for the original Thing from Another World from the 1950s. And he even teases it in another movie he did a few years earlier that he was going to remake this. Like, by having it shown on TV. And he did such a good job with this movie. I mean, it has a lot of build-up. Like, I swear we only see, like, 4 things in the movie. I'm going to call it aliens or whatever. And it really, we don't see much of it. Like, it's so, like, it's so much build-up. And the part where, like, doing the blood test, like, who's the thing, it's so cool. It really is. And I can't give Kurt Russell enough credit for his awesome performance in this movie. You really want to say those crazy sweets, huh? I don't realize they were childs. Yeah, fuck you too! Oh, I love that. He's fighting the Thing in the end. It's funny. But it's awesome at the same time. And that's why it's on this list. Okay, what are we at? Number 6? Yep. Here's a classic and definitely still holds up and did not need to be remade. The original Nightmare on Elm Street. This film, probably for the time, was probably the goriest horror movie ever. And for good reason. I mean, the freaking blood geyser scene is like... It's still kind of like... When I watch it, like... Yeah, like, oh, it's scary. Johnny Depp's getting pulled into his bed, but then it's like... Like, you just, like, you can't... Like, you're just, like, frozen as it happens. Like, it's amazing. And Freddy's just such an awesome killer. And the reason why he's a good killer is unlike Michael Myers or Jason, where they're just, like, silent... dinosaur T-Rex, and they just cause chaos and destruction and death everywhere they go. Freddy talks, he communicates, he jokes, he plays with you before he kills you. And he takes his time, he doesn't just... Like, he plays with you, he toys with you, and he torments you. He, like, pulls you to the brink of insanity before he's like, okay. And honestly, that's what makes him such a cool character. And Robert Englund does a terrific job with it. Nails it. And it's by Wes Craven, the guy that did Scream, the original Hills Have Eyes, and several other films I can't name right now. And I love it. It's a good movie, but still holds its effect. It is quite shocking at many times. Because dreams, you know, that's supposed to be when you're safe. You think I know how to count. Alright. You may or may not consider this a horror movie. It's kind of really like a thriller, kind of? I don't know how to classify it. But it's Poltergeist. And no, this is not on here just because Spielberg's name is all over it, even though that is a reason why I like it, because he came up with the story and wrote the screenplay. And it's even directed by Tobe Hooper, the guy that did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But this movie is good because just like many of these other movies, it has a build-up and it keeps you in suspense until the end of the movie when all hell breaks loose. I mean, and some of the effects are really like, they look dated, but they're not really dated because so much effort went in to make them look as good as they do. And just, I really can't praise this movie enough. And the concept of ghosts attacking you in your home is terrifying. And it's coming through the TV too. That's another thing. People watch TV and, like, all the time. There's a statistic I read not long ago that TV is on in any household for an average of 7 hours. And ghosts are freaking coming through the TV, man. They're here. It's creepy. And it really is creepy, I mean. But it's cool too, it isn't like your traditional, like, just the movie's out to completely scare the crap out of you. It's trying to actually, like, approach ghosts with science. And that's actually kind of cool about it. Like, freaking Caroline gets sucked into the other side, and they gotta go in and pull her back out. That is cool. And this was before the Presence was a preacher in the sequels. Though, to be honest, I do like Poltergeist 2. It's the third one I don't like. But Poltergeist is still the best of all of them. And it really is. I love it. And Spielberg is the man. Number 4. Yes. I think I would know this by now. Another Stephen King movie, and in my opinion, the best Stephen King movie ever. The Shining. Here's Johnny. That's my best Jack Nicholson impression. But directed by acclaimed director Stanley Kubrick, who did 2001: A Space Odyssey, Clockwork Orange, Full Metal Jacket, Eyes Wide Shut, a movie whose name escapes me. This is not, again, necessarily a horror. Well, I guess, yes, it is technically a horror movie, but it really doesn't become a horror movie till, like, the final act of the movie. That's when it becomes like, oh, now it's a horror movie. Jack Nicholson's going ape shit and wants to kill his family. That's when it becomes quote-unquote a horror movie. But the rest of the movie is just complete build-up and tension and conflicts with Jack Nicholson and his wife, Shelley Duvall, Wendy and Jack. They're conflicting with one another, and Danny's going through, like, his gift, The Shining or whatever, is like driving him insane. And you get this uncomfortable feeling just from the music and this idea of claustrophobia. These 3 people are trapped in a hotel and they can't leave. It works, man. I don't understand why Stephen King hates on this movie so much. I heard somewhere that The Shining's like his most personal book. Like, that's the book that he has, like, this strong, like, that's his, like, he has, like, such a strong connection to that book, The Shining, that I guess he wanted to see a perfect adaptation, like, spot on, no changes at all. And I have read The Shining. You can watch my Superman reviews on my old channel. I actually fought the book, literally. And yes, I have read The Shining. I own the book. But I actually, if you had to ask me what I prefer, I do prefer the movie. But to be honest, I also have seen that god-awful TV movie remake, which I'm going to talk about in a little while. This movie's still better. But I'll tell you right now, when Stanley Kubrick did follow the book, he did it, like, spot on, man. Like, some scenes I was like reading, and I'm reading the book and I can only picture this movie. I could not picture the crappy made-for-TV movie. I couldn't. Like, Stephen King might have made a more faithful adaptation, which honestly, I don't see how it's faithful. I watched Nostalgia Critic's review of the TV remake of The Shining, and what the hell does that have to do with the freaking book? With the exception of the hedge animals, which look awful, by the way. And the hedge maze was a better idea. But, in all, an excellent movie. The critics called it the first epic horror film. And just, this movie twists your mind, man. It plays with you. If you haven't checked it out, please do. Alright. Well, this is a box set. But it's only the one that I want to talk about. So I can get it without showing it. Here you are. My third favorite horror movie ever. The original Paranormal Activity. I do like the second and the third. That's what this is a box set of. I hated the fourth. I didn't hate the fourth, but it was such a stupid movie because it literally became everything that it went against everything that this film stood for. And why do I love this film so much? Why do I hold it at such a high regard that it earns a third place and it's honestly the newest movie on this list? Because it does what the found footage genre is supposed to do. I have seen Blair Witch Project, not that, like a few years ago I finally watched it for the first time. That was one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen. I'm sorry, but that movie was just stupid. I watched the whole thing and I was like, is this supposed to be scary or is it supposed to be funny? Like, honestly, that movie was just stupid. Like, I was trying to appreciate what it was trying to do. Be scary with what's not seen. That is my phone. That is my ringtone for my phone when I get a text message, and I'll look at that in a minute. But seriously, this was the last movie I ever saw that affected me. Like, when I first saw this movie, it was late at night, and I was like, so much hype was about it, and the sequel was coming out, and I really wanted to see the sequel because the trailer scared the crap out of me. So I'm like, I want to watch the first one, so I watched it on demand. And of course, you know, I'm like, hey mom, I called my mom, like, hey mom, yeah, can I watch this movie on demand? She's like, hey, sure. And I'm home alone watching this movie. Needless to say, I could not sleep that night at all. I could not sleep to save my life that night. And that's honestly what this movie does. This movie isn't as scary because it's just like it builds and stain of tension. It does not show you anything. And honestly, this movie was made for like nothing. And it's so effective because the actors do such a good job. And the reason why it's so effective is because this shit is happening in your home, where you're supposed to be safe, in your bedroom where you're supposed to be protected, and in your bed where that blanket is like that force field that protects you from all evil. And it's just happening. The ghost is dragging you out of your bed, and it's like, that's terrifying. And oh my god, the shadow effect on the door, like every time I see that, I'm just like, ugh. And this is exactly why, like, I'll watch them and be like, shut the freaking door! Shut your bedroom door and lock it! Come on! I don't want to see the shadow go past the door. Oh, there's a shadow again! Like, literally, this movie just, it affected me, man. And this is why I personally consider this the best found footage genre film ever. And it's the only one of the only few I like. Paranormal Activity 2 and 3, I like those, and Cloverfield. That's it. All other found footage genre movies can suck the big one. Will you go to bed? Someone. Just whoever's texting me, knock it off. You're interrupting my mojo. It's bad feng shui. Paranormal Activity, man. This movie is terrifying. To say the least, it scared the crap out of me. It really did. Number 2, The Exorcist. What is often regarded as the scariest movie ever made. I just recently watched this. I think last Friday I watched it. Or, no, last Friday I watched Poltergeist. It was 2 weeks ago I recently rewatched this movie just to see how much it holds up. It really does still hold up. Like, there's no, like, claymation or any kind of effect like that in this movie. No stop motion. It's all practical effects with strings and stuff like that. It's all props, and it still holds up so well. It is amazing how much this movie holds up and how it holds its effect. And again, it's all about the build-up. And freaking just watching Reagan deteriorate from this harmless girl to this demon-possessed thing, it's horrifying. You feel for these characters as they're going through this hard time, and it's just... This is honestly what I consider, like, the first horror movie with a story. Like, this is the horror movie that, like, the characters are actually characters. Like, this is over a 2-hour-long movie. You care about what's happening to them. You want them to be okay. And that's why I think this movie's so effective, and the fact that paranormal movies are just terrifying in general. But this is the one, man, that defied them all, and actually, for a time, was the most successful film ever made. So what does that tell you? But just such a freaking terrifying film in every means of the word. And just the exorcism scene is just... I wouldn't say it's scary, because it really is not scary. It's just, it's like everything's built to this, and you're just like on the edge of your seat because you want the priest to save this girl. You want them to succeed, and it's just like they're not. And like the forces of hell are coming at them, and it's just, oh man, it's such a good movie. And I don't know if this won Best Picture or not. I don't think it did. I think something else did, but I know it was nominated for Best Picture. And it shows, my God. And definitely the version you've never seen is the much better version of the film, because I've seen like most of the original theatrical edition, and I think this version is somewhat better. But that's just a minor thing, you know. So that was a lot of movies. Some really good ones, and some ones you may or may not like. Like Paranormal Activity, I know is kind of a mixed bag among people. But, and it came down to my number one favorite horror movie. I didn't care what anyone says or what anyone says. This was a clear choice for me, man. My all-time favorite horror movie that I love, still scares me, I still enjoy, I still think it holds up, it didn't need to be remade. The one, the only, the classic, Halloween. That's actually a quote from the trailer. What can you say about this movie that hasn't already been said? First, honestly, this is the movie that has pretty much, in some way, been like the father of every single slasher flick since the 70s. Like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, the sequels to Psycho, Scream, Leprechaun. All of them were inspired in some way by the success and Halloween. It's such a revolutionary horror movie, and once again, it's by John Carpenter, the guy that did The Thing. It's such a good movie. It's just... Now, it is dated. I'm not going to say it's not dated, because you can tell, like, all the actors are not high school kids, but this movie gave it, but they're all terrific out there trying their best, and like, they're really doing a good job. I mean, this is like all the cliches come from this movie, which is like, you think they'll make the movie bad, but it doesn't. It makes it better because you know, like, this is the movie that started the cliches, and this is the movie that was where the cliches came from, so this is before they were cliches. And I watched this at the beginning of the month, and again, holds up well. It didn't need to be remade. Fuck you, Rob Zombie. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But, oh my God. Awesome movie. Love this movie. I could watch this movie anytime and still enjoy it. And everybody knows the theme. Cue it. Everyone knows that theme. If you know the theme, that means you know the movie. Like, when a movie can be identified through its theme, that's a good sign. Like Jaws or Jurassic Park, the music also helped make this movie, which was done by John Carpenter, actually. He did the music. And just, Michael Myers is such a good killer. My favorite Halloween movies, because I have seen the sequels, are this one, Halloween 2, and Halloween 20 years later. Those are the only Halloween movies I own. I do not have Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which I do like, by the way. It's just I don't like it enough to own it because I know they were trying to do something different with the series and people didn't like it. 4 I don't like. 5 is terrible. 6 is just stupid. And Halloween Resurrection had potential if they didn't kill off Jamie Lee Curtis. Actually, scratch it. It really never had potential because H2O was such a perfect way to end the series that they just, no, fuck it. But Halloween, man. It's the best movie to watch during this time of the year. And that was my top 10 favorite horror movies. Because they're either scary, or I love them, or just for many reasons they're my top 10 favorite. But like I said, just because they're my top 10 favorite does not mean I don't love movies like Scream, or Cujo, or Carrie, or Christine, or Pet Sematary. Like, I know there are a lot of good horror movies out there. I also love the first 4 Friday the 13th movies. All the other sequels and crossovers can suck it. But like I said, if I wanted to put them in here, I'd have to do like a top 25 list or something like that. But now, with all that said and done, let's get down and dirty. Let's talk about my least favorite horror movies. Alright, so I didn't want to waste paper trying to write down a list of my least favorite horror movies. So I'm just going to pretty much name the ones that come to mind, because these movies, I hate them. Alright, so the reboot of Friday the 13th. All this movie was boobs and boobs. And the guy from Supernatural. That's all it was. I mean, I appreciate that it wasn't a remake among all the other crappy remakes that we get. But it's just... what does fucking sex and nudity have to do with anything? I mean, it's like... It's like they're putting it in there to be funny or something like that, because they know they can't tell humor in a horror movie because it ruins the point of being a horror movie. So they just throw it in there just to have... Honestly, if they just did this, had a sex scene, and then have, like, Jason outside just going... That would be funny. It actually would be funny. But no, this movie's just stupid and has no reason to exist. It negates all the sequels, which I'll give it credit for negating the bad sequels, because I do think Part 2, 3, and the final chapter are actually decent. But I do appreciate that the movie wasn't a remake. It actually, like, showed the very ending of the original Friday the 13th. Reshot, of course. And, like, Jason comes out of the water and he finds his mother's dead head and all that. And I appreciate that they did that, alright? I do appreciate it, which is why I don't think it's the worst remake ever. But that doesn't mean it's good in any way. I don't think it was necessary. Let's talk about another one. Yeah, most of these are gonna be freaking remakes, alright? Remake of The Shining. Let me get this one out of the way. This movie sucks. It's boring. It's all about... Alright. Pretty much... This is exactly how it goes. Something will happen for 30 seconds, then we'll spend 12 minutes talking about it, and by that time... And let's see, if you haven't fallen asleep by the half an hour mark, what the fuck? And let me tell you another reason why I don't like this movie. Alright, here's what shows it. Reasons why this shows that this is a terrible remake and why Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is much better. Alright? Back when Movie Gallery was still in business, there was one right around the corner here. And I was watching the movie Twister, and I saw like the scene where the tornado tears apart the drive-in, and The Shining's playing. And I asked my dad, "What's that movie? That looks like a horror movie. I want to see that." And he's like, "Oh, that's The Shining with Jack Nicholson. It's a great movie. You should check that out." Yeah, my parents had no problem with me watching horror movies, so don't be surprised if I end up fucked up one day. But besides the point, they had no problem watching movies. And I'm like, "Hey, I want to rent that movie, Dad." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, but yeah, you can rent it. You can watch it." And so I go to rental store to rent it, and there are two Shinings there. There's the one with Jack Nicholson, and there's this other one called Stephen King's The Shining. And so I just grabbed the Stephen King's The Shining because there's more of it, and I was like, oh yeah, it's gotta be it. He's like, yep, that's it. And so I watch it, and I'm just like, it's like a part 2 thing, and I even tell my parents about it. It's like, did you know it's a 2-part movie? And they're like, that doesn't make any sense. And like they even watched it like, dear, this isn't The Shining. What movie did you grab? And I show them, it's like, oh, this isn't The Shining. And like I'm watching, it's like, is something gonna happen? This is boring. And so I bring it back, and then I grab the one with Jack Nicholson. It's like my dad's like, all right, that's the one right there. And I watched it, and holy crap, it was so much better. And actually, it scared the crap out of me the first night I saw it. So what does that tell you? And that was back when I could watch any movie and love it. Like that was back when I used to actually like The Last fucking Airbender. So yeah, what does that tell you? Any others? Oh yeah, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. To put it to the point, that movie is unnecessary and it's not remotely scary. I really did not like... I liked who they cast to play Freddy Krueger. He wasn't a bad choice. But I honestly feel like if they cut out just about 30 seconds of that movie, they could have got a PG-13 rating. That's how toned down it was. Look, I'm not for gore in horror movies. I prefer suspense and scares over gore and boobs. But in Nightmare on Elm Street's case, I expect gore because there was gore from the start of the franchise. So I expect it to be with it, but it's like, no. The final horror movie that does what I actually want it to do, with the exception of being scary, no, let's just tone it down as much as possible and make it so we could possibly get a PG-13 rating. That blows. Assholes. What other horror movies do I not like? I'm just naming like the big typical ones. I haven't seen the remake of Carrie. I have no plans to see the remake of Carrie. No, sorry. Well, I mentioned Paranormal Activity 4. I've mentioned the Halloween movies I don't like. Well, there is one else, but I'm saving that Granddaddy for last because I got a lot of shit to say about that one. Alright, so here's another one we can talk about. The Amityville Horror remake. Again, just like Nightmare on Elm Street, it's not scary, and you can tell like they are trying so hard to be scary. And I'm not gonna brag if the original was a great masterpiece because it really wasn't. It was a movie made in the wake of The Exorcist. They were trying to do what The Exorcist did, and if they cut out a lot of the scenes of the priest, it would have done that job pretty well. When the original was focused on the family, it worked, and just you felt more sympathy for the main character George or whatever. In the remake, I felt no sympathy for him because his character just goes from like happy guy and then 10 scenes later he's a bad guy already. We see like no characterization of him, his decline into madness. But in like the original, you see that at least when we're not talking about the stupid priest, which I have nothing against priests. I'm just saying like his character after the part with the flies in the room was so pointless. Like why is his character still here? That was my main gripe with the movie. Like he's a pointless character and. After an extent. And the remake at least did acknowledge that because the priest only appears in the one part with the flies. And then after that, he's gone. He's nowhere to be found. So at least the remake acknowledges that he was a pointless character in the original. And I never read the book, so I don't know if it's in the book or not, but just... Again, just like Nightmare on Elm Street, it wasn't scary, and you could tell it was trying so hard to be scary that it became unscary. Because it was showing everything, and that's where it failed. Honestly, there was one part that actually like I was scared of, and it wasn't even a scare, it was a cheap jump scare. I mean, it was kind of gross, but it's like the kid's brushing his teeth or whatever. He goes down, spits into the sink, and then like the camera pans left, and we saw this like rotting corpse next to him for a second. And it's just a cheap jump scare, and that's it. Like, there's no other part in the movie that like gets me like that. And the imaginary friend Jody, In the original, she's an imaginary friend. We don't see her. We'll just like see the rocking chair where she's supposed to be. But no, in this one, we'll see like her like a rotting dead girl like on the ceiling with arms grabbing her and stuff. It's like, that ruins the whole buildup of it. Come on. You know, Jodie's supposed to be the spirit of the girl that was killed in the house the year before. You're ruining it. Man. I will give them props, though. The babysitter was hot. But that's it. They recognized the priest was a useless character, and the babysitter was hot. That's all I got for this movie. I never saw the remake of Psycho. I know it's a shot-for-shot remake, so obviously that means it sucks. There is the Texas Chainsaw remake, but again, that's one of those remakes where it's like, it's not a good movie by any means, but I don't hate it because it did what remakes should do. A film that's aged terribly, you try to remake it in the modern way, and you try to make it your own thing. And that's what it did. At least it tried to. You know, it kept the macabre and fucked up, sick stuff that the original had, but it was updated, and it tried to actually make an own story. Like, it gave Leatherface like a background and everything. We got to see him without the skin on him, and just I acknowledge what it was trying to do. It didn't do it perfectly. So to an extent, I don't hate it. I actually do own it. It's like the only remake I do own from the last decade, but it's not great. I still prefer the original. Alright. Anything else I can talk about before I rip Rob Zombie's remake of Halloween a new asshole? Let's stop prolonging the level, people. My least favorite horror movie ever is Rob Zombie's remake of Halloween and its god-awful sequel, Halloween 2. I can't even express my amount of hatred for that movie. I love the original so much that when I heard they were remaking, I'm like, this is gonna be cool, you know? I would like to see Halloween, like, just with respect and treatment for the original, just updated on modern tense, give us, like, what the original stood for. Suspense, you know, they're having sex, but we don't really get this, like, we don't see everything. You know, we don't see the boobs and shit, and just, nothing fucked up, just, what do we get? We got everything that the original did. We got everything in this remake that the original intentionally did not want to do. John Carpenter's Halloween scared with just jump scares, a buildup of suspense. It's scared with suspense and chills. Rob Zombie's remake, and also, the original doesn't even, has like no blood at all. The only blood I remember seeing from the movie is just blood on the knife in the beginning of the movie when his parents arrive and they take the mask off and we see it was Michael that killed his sister. And that's the only blood I can think of. Everything else is Rob Zombie's remake. No, blood everywhere. Blood. And I don't like Rob Zombie. I'm sorry, I've never saw a House of a Thousand Corpses. I never saw Devil Rejects. I have no plans to. They looked fucked up, and that's not my idea of a horror movie. I want a horror movie that scares me with thrills and is about normal people being confronted by these things of evil, not fucked up, sick, twisted individuals getting fucked up by some sick individual. So it's like the fucked up people are getting fucked up by even more fucked up people. And I'm using language because I'm so pissed off at this movie happened. Rob Zombie's like, I care so much about the original. I want to show it with respect. You know, I want to show it. I want to prove that I love the original. No. You don't obviously love the original because you did everything the original didn't do. And that's like the biggest insult to it. You made it dark and gritty. Granted, that's how movies are the last decade, but that's not what the original was. It was about these normal people just suddenly getting attacked by some psychopath. You gave Michael Myers a backstory. His family's all fucked up. And just, that obviously, it's like, we have no, like, Oh yeah, he's gonna be like fucking Michael Myers, no surprise there. It'd be better if he was like a loving family and his sister says, no, I don't want to take you trick-or-treating. It'd be like just such a twist. It's like, how could this kid from a loving family like just suddenly kill it? I didn't get the impression at all from the original, just looking at their house and everything, that they were a terrible family, that they were awful people. I didn't get that impression at all. And just, what were you thinking, Rob Zombie? I am trying to hold myself back because I can literally rip this movie to shreds all night long until the cows come home. Just, what were you thinking, Rob Zombie? You were not talented to do this. You are a terrible director. Please stay away from Halloween. And the sequel was even worse. I didn't think that was possible, but the sequel was worse, but at least it was something original. It wasn't just a remake of Halloween 2. So I'll give it props for that, but I still hate the original more because it is a remake of my all-time favorite horror movie. Oh, I hate that movie so much. Oh, it can rot in hell for all I care. And the fucking rape scene in Smith's Grove, what was the point of that? There was no point. Rob Zombie's just a fucked up guy, and that's not the kind of person I wanted to make this movie. Yes, I know it's about a psychopath killing people, but it's supposed to be him killing normal people. It makes it much scarier when normal people are suddenly thrown into the situation. Okay? That's why these movies are good. Because then remakes nowadays are like, we should feel no sympathy for these people getting killed. They are doing nothing that makes me feel sorry for them. They are doing drugs. They are doing shit. They are having premarital sex and unprotected sex. They're doing everything that makes me say, yes, they're the destruction of the youth of nowadays. They're everything that makes me say, yeah, fucking kill them. They're gonna make the good children, they give the good children a bad name. So it's like, I don't give a shit. These older movies, these are actually good people that's it's happening to, so that's why you feel bad about it. Okay? I hate Rob Zombie's remake. It is a terrible movie. Never watch it. I'm never going to watch it. I cannot believe I saw that movie in theaters. And I hate the actor who played young Michael Myers. I don't know what it is about that kid, but I hate him. Alright? Maybe, I'm sure he's probably a nice guy in real life, but it's something about his acting. I just wanted to punch the kid in the face. I'm done. I can't talk about this movie anymore. I'm losing my voice because of it. And I'm trying to hold back on the swearing and all that. I'm trying, man. So, that was my Halloween special. I talked about my favorite movies, and I ripped apart the movies I hate that are horror movies. And I hope you enjoyed it. You know, it was something simple and easy for me to do, and I hope everyone has a happy Halloween, and I'll see y'all on the next Derek Gould Reviews. Peace out, everybody. You know what? Let's go out with the nice little closing music.